Welcome everyone. Welcome to Virtual More Job Club. I'm Jay Prasso, and today we'll be going over the course of any good job hunt, your resume. The first thing many employers will be looking at will be this 1 to 3 page document that can be summed up an entire life's work. It's your first impression, and you only get one. The job of this document is to get them to keep thinking about you, the applicant, long after securing an interview. Finding a decent job is hard, especially now. The vast majority of job applications are discarded for very simple, preventable things. One, they didn't apply correctly. In most cases, you should be applying exactly how the employer wants you to apply on their site, unless you know someone who can get you in with the hiring manager. Two, they meet the basic requirements of the position. I have a lot of stories from HR people who apply without hitting any of the requirements outlined for the position. Three, they made basic spelling errors. Now, I'm assuming you haven't done these things. That leaves the important few who actually read the job description and have some relevant experience. You need every edge you can get to be at the top of this pile. Now, basic guidelines that will serve you for 90%, 95% of the time when you are formatting your resume. Your resume should be targeted at each job posting or at least industry. Some might require a few tweaks for each position, sometimes more. Use keywords and action verbs, such as strong team player, or an example of a concrete benefit you brought to a previous employer, like increase sales by 50% this quarter. 3. Be consistent in your formatting. There are a few ways to list job experience and education, but no matter what style you choose, be consistent in the entire document. 4. Use as few words as possible. You do not have a monopoly on the reader's time. You need to quickly communicate why you want the job, what's your experience, and what do you offer. 5. Do not lie or exaggerate, or at least don't exaggerate a lot. That said, don't be afraid to show off. If you have done something important or noteworthy, put it on the resume. That includes something that you may not really assume as experience. Maybe you have some volunteer work. Include that. Show the employer your best side. This should go without saying, but double or triple check for errors. This includes spelling, all your dates, addresses, abbreviations, entry terms, get it right. I'll show you one of my old resumes later, and it actually has a few errors on it that I hopefully corrected before I posted here. But I was able to sneak past this one time, but it's something that gets you into disqualified. Again, it's minor, but don't forget it. For fun, make it easy to read, but don't get fancy. Arial, Trebs AMS, or Times New Roman are all fine. There are a few other professional-looking fonts that you are free to use, but never use anything silly like we have here, like Lobster or Pacifico. Use italics and bold correctly. Bold headings. It may be appropriate to bold or italicize specific titles or positions. You have some freedom here, but don't bold or italics things mid-sentence. Use it to carefully draw the reader's attention. Personal pronouns should be avoided at all costs. Don't use statements like I work with customers. Use work with customers. The I or my is too personal and takes up space. When you say I, it sounds like a personal claim. Without the pronoun, it's a hard statement, a fact which you made in good faith and will have to defend during the interview. Last, use past tense when talking about past positions and present when talking about present positions, like a job you're currently performing. Now, when you think resume, you may assume the standard order of name, education, experience, and some extra fields, but there are a couple different ways to do a resume. The first is chronological. A chronological resume is the standard combined when you think resumes. This generally you lead with education and a comprehensive list of your professional experience, listing each position with a full list of duties and achievements for each one. What is front and center is your experience, your employment record, and that you have a clear professional narrative. That each position is building towards this job. You don't need to include every position you've ever held. That's for your application. But include everything that sells you as the ideal candidate for a position. Let me just show you an example that is available through us from one of our services called BrainFuse. Okay, here we have just a basic Chronicle resume, including a little description under each section. Usually includes a career profile, education, and of course professional experience, which is all its biggest section of the document. Now the other option you have is functional. If you have holes or little job experience in general, or you're in a highly technical field like IT, or some trades, I recommend a functional resume. This is also good if you have a bunch of certifications you want to show off. Let me show you the other example. So this is a functional resume. There is a career statement on top, but the biggest one will be the profile of qualifications. So that's the first thing the employer's going to see. It's your front and center, and you're basically just listing what you can do. Now it's on for where you did it for. We see everything on here. There's professional history. It's there, but it's not. It's listed as importantly. Education as well. Like the biggest thing with this format is you're showing off exactly what you can do. That's the first thing you're going to see. Now I gave you a lot of information before, but now we're going to use these principles to break down the building resume part by part. Generally, all resumes are going to include in some way these four sections: contact info, education, professional experience, and other activities or skills. A professional summary is nice, but it's not always required. I do encourage you to include one. Same goes for achievements if you can. Now, contact info, just basically your name, email, professional number, and current address. That's the basics. For phone, I'd recommend you use your cell, but it just has to be one you answer regularly. I also recommend you include sending professional voicemail for potential employers if you know they're going to call that number. For emails, I encourage you to have a dedicated professional email just for career-related items with a nice professional name, which is the abbreviation of your name. This will make sorting through anything related to your job hunt much easier as it's all stored away from your personal emails. Now, social media is optional, but if you have a LinkedIn account, I strongly encourage you to include one. I primarily, if you wanted to share information that would be too wordy for the resume itself, or if you wanted to show off your history with a particular company. Basically anything, if it's thinking clear the resume, but you still want the employer to see it, and you think they will look at it, put it on your Indeed. I mean, LinkedIn. And what might come next on the resume is the professional summary. Now it's required, but it's encouraged. If you have a good idea of where you're going with your career, like how you want to brand yourself, include one. Doesn't have to be a lot, maybe just 2-3 sentences, but it gives the employer a good persuasive hook to keep reading the resume. And we have one here, just detail-oriented civil engineer, MP with 5 years experience, and a zest for solving problems. So you can use proven project management skills and design skills to improve quality, cost, and time metrics for NEP engineering. And like I said, this is a good example because it doesn't include any personal promise. He's just making a short statements about what he can do, and it's encouraged me to read the rest of the resume. Education, that could just be year, name of the school, location of school, and degree awarded. Now, if you just got out of school, feel free to include any notable coursework as if you were listing the duties of a position. If you have a good grade, include that, unless your GPA was less than 3.5. Then you can just quietly leave it out. We want the employer to see our best face. Achievements. The resume is your chance to show off. If there's something big you did in the past, like you hit Employee of the Month or a big notable sale, don't be afraid to include it. It's also very handy to be able to point to you during an interview. Because if you just have, sometimes while I'm during an interview, I may get flustered, but if I have something on the resume I can point to, it's like, hey, I did this big thing in the past, it'll start a new line of questions, which will really help the flow of the interview. For most people, the professional experience section will be the meat and potatoes of the resume. If the employer has decided to keep reading, this will be the most important section of the document. It doesn't need to be your entire work history, just what's relevant to the employer. They don't need to hear about the side job to clean carpets for 6 months, if you're applying for a sales position, unless it's a sales position to sell carpets. Now, if you're low on experience, like I said, you can always try a functional resume or list any volunteer positions as if they were paid positions in the sections. Or maybe you can just include whatever you're doing during this time period. I've seen a lot of people just put taking care of an elderly relative, which works if you're going into a customer service position where you're generally going to be working with the elderly. The more you are able to tell a story and show consistent employment history, the better. Now, activities. Something like volunteer work is always great to include, especially if it's in a civil organization and involves skills related to the position. If you're part of a civil, and it's part of a civil organization, uh, especially include ones that where you have a leadership role. You can include your hobbies as well, but generally only the ones that are related position, like say, if you blog in your free time and you're required to write in the job, that's a good one to include. Skills certification, this could be optional depending on if you go a chronological or a functional resume. Certifications could be included in their own section of the beginning. I highly recommend you only include skills that can be justified or that are novel. Stay away from like soft terms like just hard worker. Now, maybe good with people, that could be something good, or like solid customer experience, that's a good example of a soft skill. But don't include something generic just like hard work because everyone puts that. Now, to beat the applicant tracking system. This I covered everything on the resume itself, but this is one side topic. I'm gonna say right now, generally the applicant tracking system is not a big of a hurdle as you think it is. I've heard a lot of people talk. I see a lot of articles online just about how to get back to applicant tracking system, how do I get my resume from like through it. It's not that big of a deal. But the main reason you would worry about these things is such if you're applying to a federal job, so something like through Indeed, or like a company applications for large corporations where they just actually put your resume and then it spits out into all the fields. Any job where hundreds or thousands of people will be applying, this is where employers want to check off that everyone they're looking at has the bare minimum, so they usually have a computer file submissions based on this criteria. We don't use one here. Your resume just goes to HR and gets sent in a big pile to all the department heads. The main thing you should remember is to use the right file type. PDF isn't always the answer, especially if it's not searchable. Like if you go to one of our scanners in the library and scan your resume as a PDF, it may come out just as an image of a PDF, and the ATS will not be able to read that. It'll have a better time if it's searchable, but formatting may not always be perfect. Again, I recommend using just a basic Word document for your building your resume. And for that, especially on that point, don't put any information like contact info in the header or the footer of the document. Most systems are set to gloss right over it. Information there does not exist in the ATS. Some people do this if they are writing their resume in Word, but it's also something that might happen if with a couple of resume building tools that automatically export to Word or a similar format. And I said before, but ATS scans for keywords like external of years, specific skills or qualifications, and action verbs. You should already be including these as they are more eye-catching to a human viewer, but it's also important for any automated systems. And last but not least, any kind of fancy formatting or images will be best ignored or completely destroy the ability of their reader to read the document. If you really want to include these on your resume, keep a separate copy used during an interview, or if you know it's going to go directly to a human. Other than these points, it's not that big of a deal. Now, style and color, that's a major sticking point when writing a resume. Generally, just what is on the resume itself, the content should stand for itself. But we need every chicken available for us to get to the top of the employer's pile. One that is fairly common to include is just your contact information or your profile statement or skills could be going in the sidebar. Skills could be shortened to a one word or one or two words and expressed as percentage or dart, or basically a percentage bar or dots showing like how experienced you are in something. Maybe you add a few color bars as part of the header or footer. There actually are a couple templates in Microsoft Word that work for this purpose, and a lot of services online that charge a lot to custom build your resume with a bunch of techy formatting. In most cases, a standard black and white document with maybe 2 color choices will serve you 90% of the time. Now, this is one of my older resumes. It's okay, but things could have been done a lot better. In particular, the formatting is not that, it's kind of all over the place for each section. And I don't like how the job descriptions are written out, but there is white space, but it's like all patchy. So it's okay. It got me through my first interview for my library position, but I could have done better. And this is one I made in about an hour with the template provided by BrainFuse. It's hidden, but my LinkedIn profile is there. I took out the skill section because a lot of the experience is old and needed to be shifted around to the activities. Everything was redone to provide a consistent narrative of employment with everything that building towards my current position. And I just like because the format is clear and defined. There's some white space, but there's enough so you've a bit breather between each sections. I also made sure to include consistent verb tense in each job description. Now, writing your resume can seem challenging, but there are a lot of tools online to make it simple that are free to use. The most important thing to have is the format you can easily change. The simplest is just to build in Microsoft Word. We have resume building software on all our public computers, but I still encourage you to do at least export to Word when you're finished. Now, one of the best sources or templates to build your resume is also Microsoft Word. They include a lot of great ones that you can access by just opening a new document and then searching for resume and cover letters. There are many great looking options, though some may be a bit more advanced than what we need. And also the service we have through the library called BrainFuse Job Now, what we just saw here today. Those are the 2 templates I show you. You're free to use those. And you're also going to just search web for a bunch of simple web. By just search web, there's a couple of sites that include some simple templates. I strongly encourage you to not pay for one and try to steer clear of online builders because even if they are free, they may only export to a PDF, which you can't edit, or they'll heavily encourage you to pay for a premium service. It's not something you always need. As long as you have a good, clear-looking resume, the employer's not going to mind. Now, when you're writing, one of the best sources of writing resume otherwise is Purdue University's OWL, their online writing lab. They have a wonderful guide for writing many, many different kinds of resumes, which I can't recommend enough. Which include down here. Just go search. You can just probably just search for 2 OWL resumes. It'll pop right up. Now, when it comes time for revision, in-house, we also, like I said, BrainFuse Job Now, which offers live resume coaches in real time to answer all your resume questions. And they have a resume lab where you can submit your resume, and they'll send it back within 24 hours with comments and suggestions for revision. It's a really great service we offer, and like I said, if you have a library card, do not hesitate to check this out. We also have 2 really great organizations area who can help you with all your career needs. The DuPage Career Center in Lisle and the Workforce of Will County in Joliet. Both offer about the same services like resume and cover letter revision, as well as many other job search services such as training and financial assistance for further educations. If you have no other alternatives, you can always go to me. I'm always here to provide similar services to the best of my ability. That's all I had for today. I'll be sticking around for a bit if you have any further questions. I think that we went over here today. I'm also free to set up a one-on-one appointment for all your career and business needs, including resume review. If you're leaving now, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.